Hey, everybody. Okay, so I am making a video that I have actually been called to make for a couple years. Um, and the reason that I'm making it now is because um, a post of mine from May 2019 that I wrote pertaining to navigating connections with narcissistic traits is showing up again on Facebook. And it's been sort of making the rounds again. And I've had three different private messages about it, as well as, comments actually asking me questions like, what should I do? This is what I'm dealing with. What do you think I should do? I had one comment like that. Um, it's interesting. I'm not sure why the post fell back into the Facebook algorithms after all of this time, but I'm feeling that it's purposed. And I would really like to speak to not only the elements of narcissistic traits and navigating narcissistic abuse, but I would like to speak to what it means within the construct of all that we're dealing with today. And so I'm going to be speaking from psychological perspectives, um, perspectives just pertaining to the world, as well as spiritual perspectives. I do ask that if you do decide to watch this video, that you please watch it until the end, because there's going to be a lot of things that I'm going over, and everything sort of ties in together. And if you just take certain slices away instead of the whole pie, um, my concern is that the overall bird's eye view message that I am hoping to bring to you today will not be accessible. So please just put in the time. As for myself, a little bit about myself in terms of credentials and experience in this space. I have a lot of personal experience in this space. I have been on my own path of awakening, healing path, seeking path for many years. Part of the reason that I didn't make a video about this in the past was because I would still go in and out of the space of feeling emotionally charged inside of it. And so while I have worked with many people, mostly women, but also men in this space, one-on-one, it's different when you sit down and you actually want to speak publicly in terms of our own emotional charges that come in due to our own navigation of these spaces. And now I'm at the point where I feel that I truly can come at it from a space of that bird's eye view, and a much more healed space, sort of like how I term it, a queen space or a crone space rather than a princess space. And so I hope that it's helpful due to the fact that I have navigated these spaces. Also, I do have 4 life coach certifications, and with the exception of completing some internships, which has been challenging since COVID, I am in the process of working on my licensure in clinical mental health counseling. So those are sort of my more matrix qualifications, but honestly, that's just sort of for your left brain to open and, accept what I'm bringing. Or rather, so your left brain can open and your right brain can access. Because I truly believe that experience is our teacher more than anything that we can learn in a class or learn in graduate school or whatever. Our own personal experiences are all working for us, not against us. They are trying to help us awaken, and they are trying to help us remember. They are trying to help us see the world so that we can be helpers within it, simply by bringing ourselves to the world. And sometimes we do experience some really challenging, painful spaces, spaces where we suffer deeply. And my intention is never to bypass those spaces, but especially now, in terms of where we are inside of the world and what is being asked, um, it's very meaningful to also comprehend, with your mind, your heart, and your gut, that it also has a purpose, because it's everything happens for a reason. It's trying to help you awaken. It's trying to help you remember who you are. So the first thing that I want to do, is actually read. Just let me pull it up here. Read my initial post. And I might sort of stop in a couple spaces to sort of explain, some concepts for people who are not familiar with, the verbiage that applies to the concepts. Okay, so again, this was a post from May 2019. If someone is employing pathological controlling, you're a straw man. They think they can knock down communication styles. Okay, so I'm going to actually stop right there, because I would like to, and let me just pull this up, because I'm going to actually read you, a definition of straw man, because I understand a lot of people don't even know what that is. So a straw man is a form of argument and an informal fallacy or logical fallacy of having the impression of refuting an argument. Meanwhile, the proper idea of argument under discussion was not addressed or properly refuted. So one who engages in this fallacy is said to be attacking a straw man. So basically what this is saying is that the actual argument, supposedly under discussion, is sort of, skipped over, bypassed, and other arguments are brought into play that, either really don't relate or kind of relate, but maybe you've heard the term like word salad. So it's like, if you're having a conversation with someone and, there's a specific point to the conversation, and then all this other stuff starts coming in, maybe, other accusations that don't really relate, or like that kind of relate. But things are just like twisted and turned, and it can really confuse the person who is trying to speak whatever they're trying to say, because now they have to go into a place where they're defending themselves about other sort of tentacles, that are brought into the argument. And then the main point, it's really challenging to even go back to that main point. And a lot of times there's gaslighting that's involved in that. There's ad hominem attacks, which is, when the person's character is attacked rather than refuting, the actual argument itself. These are all very common, techniques used within, narcissistic communication. So one of the things that I want to point out, in addition to the fact that it is very disconcerting, it is very, crazy making for the person who experiences this, I also want to point out that someone who engages in these techniques with you, is disconnected from self, and, they're coming from a place where they need to be right at all costs, and they will do anything to be right. And likely this is due to their own self-concept of shame that has been created through their own traumas, many of them normalized. It is very challenging growing up in this world. Many of them have been normalized within parenting styles, etc. And then, of course, there's the more overt abuse that people experience. So due to whatever traumas they've experienced within their childhoods, within, their teens, their 20s, their 30s, whatever, just growing up in the world, trying to survive, they adopt these communication styles, because if they're right and you're wrong, and they come out looking rosy and you come out looking like mud, then they can feel better about themselves. A lot of times smear campaigns are also utilized in this. If someone has a deep need to have a story align with what they need the story to be, they will rewrite the stories. They will use straw man, ad hominem, gaslighting techniques within the smear campaigns to validate the way they want the story to be, because it's what they can understand. So a lot of times it's coming from a need that they have, an ego need for things to be as they need it to be. And they're not able to acknowledge that. And so really unloving behaviors come from that, because it might be painted as concern or love or I'm worried about you. But any time, and I cannot emphasize this enough, any time that we attempt to control the life, the path, the story of another, it is not love. It is not love. For example, I could watch one of my dear friends, navigate a situation, and I might be thinking in my head, wow, this might not be the best way, or maybe even I'm judging the person, but the center space to come back to always is that we have no right to do anything but observe in someone else's life, because we do not know their lessons. We do not know their path. We do not know what they're here to do. We do not know their mind. We do not know their motives. We do not know what they are really feeling. We do not know layers of the story that have not been shared with us. And the idea that we do is narcissistic, because when we think that about someone, that we know these things about someone and where someone is coming from, and that they're doing the wrong thing, or whatever, however we judge it, we are entertaining an idea that they are just like sort of a prop, in our own reality. And we're projecting our reality, our thoughts, our emotions, our needs, our constructs, our worldviews, our programs, our belief systems onto the other person, and then trying to control them into behaving in ways or doing things differently that align with us. So it's sort of like, if you can imagine like a stage, and we're like a king or a queen on a big throne with a scepter and a crown, and there's all these sort of jesters around, and we're telling them, dance like this, do that trick. That's sort of, it's the same idea. Everyone is sovereign. Every human is sovereign. Every human has choices, and we have absolutely no right to assume that we have any control over the life of another. This is something that we can also apply to our children, whether they are young children or they are our adult children. Understanding that, we all have our own paths, and when we are loving, our job is to observe. We don't have to like it. We don't have to support it. All we need to do is observe. That is what love is. And ultimately, as long as we are focusing on ourselves, our own inner work, our own life path, then we are given so many opportunities to keep our own expansion happening, keep our own growth happening, that there's no room anymore. There's not even anything in us that even wants to do that or needs to do that. So this all comes back to self-connection. When we're able to connect to ourselves and keep growing and keep expanding and stay focused on ourselves, then we're able to allow others to do the same. And, these scenarios can take place in very small spaces, very small situations, to very large situations. And so it's just something to have self-awareness for. We all of us, all humans have the potential to behave narcissistically. Narcissism, oh, he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. It has become sort of a pop culture term that is thrown around a lot. And, you know, that's interesting. But I also think that there's a lot of truth in it. So in some ways it's inaccurate, but if we look at the actual DSM-5 diagnosis criteria, but there's a lot of truth in it, because I think what people are noticing is the collective wounded behavior that plays out in relationships. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we all can look back at times when we may have exhibited narcissistic traits before we started to connect to ourselves, before we started to heal. Maybe not, you know, there are some just really, really beautiful humans that come in and never take part in any of those things. And so I'm certainly not saying, you know, you've done it too. That's not what I'm saying. But the time that we're in right now is really asking us all to go within and self-reflect and, you know, stay out of the divisive spaces and lead from love more than ever. And I'm going to talk a lot more on that later, but that's really the main reason that I am making this video now, because again, I thought it was interesting that this post started making its rounds. And I am not wanting to feed any divisive narratives right now. We are still, we always will be, we are still navigating relationships, and some of them are very toxic. And so that's not going to go away. And I am here to absolutely support you as you do so. But I am also wanting to put out into the universe, you know, how meaningful it is to do our work right now. So I don't want that post to be feeding any sort of like victim archetypes. If you have experienced any of that stuff, it's for a reason. You are here for a everyone is here for a reason. Everyone has a purpose. But if you have experienced that and you know that you have, and you see it, if you can see it, you have to. And I normally don't use verbiage like that, but I am asking you deeply to consider that you are possibly schooled in the spaces you are here to heal, and that you have a tremendous light to shine. And so it's very important to do the work. It's very important to enter the healing path and do the work, but it's equally important to understand that, you know, we need to use it. We need to use the spaces that we have been shown pathology. We need to apply what we have seen to the world, apply to what we see happening in the microcosm, and then consider what roles we can adopt to start to make, you know, to start to create something new in this world. All the things that we see happening now, it's just overt pathology coming to the surface. It's all been there all along. It's just been more covert. And so now that we're being asked to make a choice like never before. We're being asked to make a choice. Are we going to align with the divisive narratives? Are we going to align with the archetypes, the victim, savior archetypes, all of that? Or are we going to align with creating something new? But in order to create something new, we first need to heal. And there are so many things that go into that. It's very multifaceted, and you can't skip it. It won't be skipped. But if you're waking up to this now, you are on the fast track. You are on the fast track, and you can do it. If you're waking up to it now, it's because you're capable of it. You're able to wake up to everything that's happening and see everything that's happening and do the inner work. And so if you could benefit from support, seek out a coach, seek out a counselor, someone who is well-versed in these spaces, not just any counselor, not just any coach, someone who does have experience navigating this and who has supported others in navigating this space. But ultimately, it is a very personal path. Every situation is unique. Every relationship is unique. No one can tell you what to do. No one can tell you how to handle it. It's only you know. Only you know what you're being asked to do. And sometimes that will change. You might handle things one way for a while because it's what's needed in that time. And then you might shift and handle something in a different way because something new is needed. It will all be a reflection of your own healing path. And it will also be a reflection of, just sort of you sniffing out what's needed as you go, leading from your intuition, leading from your choice. So it's a wide path with many stepping stones on it, and it's a beautiful path. As much as it hurts, as painful as it can be, as frustrating as it can be, it's a beautiful path because in every single way, it is leading you to a deeper connection with yourself, a deeper connection to the idea that you are sovereign, you have choices. You always have choices. A deeper connection to the idea of what love is and what love looks like, how we can model it while also honoring our own boundaries. A deeper connection to your emotions, to caring about how you feel. This is very, very important because until we care about how we feel and sit with ourselves and allow ourselves to process our emotions, we're resisting what is, we're resisting what we feel. And so it's like just going up against a brick wall like this all the time, judging ourselves, feeling shame. We'll still exhibit codependent behaviors. And by that, I mean moving through the world from a space of deriving our own self-worth from making other people happy, as opposed to giving because we choose to give and we have it to give. And as long as we're leading from the former instead of the latter, we will exhaust ourselves. We will end up feeling frustrated, resentful. We will embody, especially for women, the divine feminine, we will embody the victim and martyr archetypes, which is okay. That's just, if you notice yourself doing that, it's just a layer in you that's in the lineage, and it's asking to be seen and to come up and be healed. There's a lot of anger in those spaces, And so not resisting anything that we feel, caring about how we feel, allowing it to come up, allowing it to be processed, but always sort of keeping that bird's eye view that everything that happens in this matrix, this world as we see it, is a reflection of what's happening in the macrocosm, and it's wounds playing out. So even, if you have an abuser, it's your abuser's wounds playing out. I'm not saying to excuse them. I'm not saying to forgive them. I am not telling you to feel one way or another about anything. It is your path, and it is very, very personal. But holding that knowing at the same time as holding all of your, very righteous, appropriate response emotions, feelings, is very meaningful, especially right now, because we are really being asked to take that bird's eye view. The divisive narratives all relate to our relationships with people, trying to define people, trying to define ourselves, our own identifications, other people's identifications, how that works politically, because we have this very divisive political system of duality where everyone is being asked to choose a pillar. Are you this or are you that? There's something in the middle. There's a space in the middle of all of our relationships, all of our identifications. If we do identify with one politic versus another, there is a space in the middle that we do have the potential to access. And in that space, there is the ability to see that there are pillars and that there is duality, and that this duality is being used to divide humanity. And I'm not even saying that that is necessarily a bad thing. Everything is purposed in the end. There's a big circle, and it's all going to connect in the end, one way or another. But when we can sort of get on that middle path and look at everything from a bird's eye view and see everything that's happening. Honor our emotions, process our emotions, activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which I'll talk more about that later, so that we're not reactive, we're responding, then we are going to be contributing to the creation of a much more loving, beautiful world that we are being asked to see the potential for just through the lower, unloving, abusive spaces that we have been a part of, that we have experienced. So anytime we're able to see a dark space, we're also being asked to look at the light space, right? Like what does the opposite thing look like? What does that look like? We're being asked to see that as well. And so how can we contribute that to that? What can we do? How can we lead ourselves? What action pieces can we take? And the first thing is to do the self-healing. Okay, so that was like really long. Let me bring this up again. I'm going to finish reading the post. Let's see here. Got to go back. All right, so if someone is employing pathological controlling, you're a straw man, they think they can knock down communication styles, and your discernment tells you that it's not cool, that something is off, it's not cool, and it is off. So this is asking you to trust yourself, to believe yourself, to trust your gut when you're feeling something or when you have a red flag. And the healing path is what brings us to the space where we're able to do that more easily. And it is absolutely a process, especially when we've been raised in these types of spaces or had long-term relationships in those types of spaces. We do really doubt ourselves, not believe ourselves. Self-esteem is down, self-concept is down, self-worth is down. That's all stuff that we can heal. We can heal. Anyone who knows me, knows my heart, knows my desire to shine light and connect and create, also knows by now that I'm also committed to honoring my own path, my own vision, my own space. If I say fuck off, it means I've seriously had enough of the BS preceding my words, and I did everything I could to give the other person an opportunity to stop painting me as a prop in their perceptual reality. Because with some, it doesn't matter if you refuse to be painted that way, and know deeply that you are not their prop. They will still continue with the actions and words that keep bringing their reality into yours. You can choose the road that says, this doesn't even bother me, because their perception is their own and doesn't affect me. But depending on the relationship, there are absolutely ways that this type of narcissism continues to affect us. And you know what they are, and they're real, and you don't have to validate that knowing to anyone. This applies if someone is pushing you repeatedly to see life the way they do, or be like them and less like you, and your attempts at communicating just trigger them more, and their desire to control seems to deepen. They're disconnected from self, they're wounded and unaware, they're unconscious of how their own wounds are playing out. Hence the paradox of fuck off with love. All boundaries are preferences, your preferences. It's you saying, the way you interact with me does not feel good. I don't like it. You're not showing your growth through action. Your behaviors continue and or worsen. Peace out. If another human isn't capable of accepting your separate and unique existence and what that looks like, that's what I was talking about when I was talking about being a prop in someone's reality. Your separate and unique existence. We all are separate and unique. If another human tries to force you to adopt their own ego identifications, we see this happening so much in the world right now, politically, right? Lots of ad hominem attacks. If a publication, this has happened to me, if I post information from a publication, I just did one last night that was a libertarian publication, and someone came on right away and, this is a right-wing conspiracy theorist, Republican, conservative, this publication is bullshit. They didn't even read the article. That's an ad hominem attack. And it's just because they're aligned with the left. And so they immediately dismissed something that actually they misperceived to be Republican. It's actually libertarian, but whatever, whole other topic. So if another human tries to force you to adopt their own ego identifications, if they are not capable of recognizing this, and you continue to be a punching bag of sorts, that's a problem, because that's a problem for you, right? And it's a very um, validated problem. It's not okay. If I say fuck off, it's rare and it's reserved for a certain creepy, crawly feeling in my physical and emotional bodies that signals something not cool continues to go down. Yes, continues is the key word, as I always attempt to communicate first and watch for consistently changed action. So, and when I say that, that's, you speaking, so like, whoa, hey, listen, you know, your expectation in this space, or you're pushing me in this space, or you're trying to control me in this space is not okay with me. You need to stop. I don't need to explain this to you. This is my life. Or, you're being really pushy, trying to push what you want me to do on me. Or you see me in a certain way, and you're not getting it. You're not seeing me as sovereign, with my own mind, with my own emotions, and I'm not comfortable with that. And the person continues to do it again and again. Um, and of course, also recognizing that it's very triggering for that person, right? When you're speaking those things, because anyone that is behaving in this way is actually from a traumatized space looking for love. So that's how control um masquerades as love, right? It's like, I love you, if we have to be on the same page about this, you have to do what I want you to do, you have to be the thing that I think you are, um so that I can validate myself, that things like that. It's, again, it's just a lack of inner work. The self connection is not there. So, yes, continues is the key word, as I always attempt to communicate first and watch for consistently changed action. This isn't about axing people from your life in the heat of emotional fury. This is done from a queen space, not a princess space, that I can recognize easily because I have been schooled in those spaces and have witnessed many clients and connections come crawling out of those spaces barely intact, because it can become really devastating. And I have witnessed situations, from loved ones, when I have heard stories that I cannot even believe. There is a spectrum of these behaviors. There is a spectrum of narcissistic traits. And on one end, it's someone who sort of maybe wants to just control you. Maybe they suck your energy a lot. They want you to do what they want you to do. They want you to show up here or do this thing, and then they get angry if you don't, because you choose yourself, you choose your own needs, all the way to, um, people I know who people have literally tried to destroy them, when they couldn't control them, and done everything they could to ruin their lives. And I have watched so many beautiful souls just rise out of the ashes like freaking phoenixes, and just soar, and used it to heal, and used it to come into an empowered space. Okay, so because you see, this is fairly common stuff. It truly is. The situations and scenarios may look different, but the patterns and pathological communication styles, driven by deep self-connection and fear, which is the opposite of love. It's always about fear, guys, always, are always at the root. So the appearance and outcomes are strikingly similar in pretty much every version of this that exists. It's much more about creating a crystal clear verbal boundary than anything else. There isn't even anger there, not at this point. There's a bit of incredulity, and there's seeing of the other person's wounds that result in their behavior, but the latter does not indicate self-sacrifice. So what I'm saying here is, just because you do see their wounds and you feel for them, and you understand why they're behaving this way, that's really beautiful. That's beautiful. And that's what we need in this world, big time. But it doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself to that you have to allow that to go on in your life. And so if verbal boundaries don't work, it is okay to create a physical space where you do create, you actually, the term is no contact, where you do go no contact with this person. Just understand that when you do that, there may be a lot of fallout because the person is going to have a really big response. But that's something that you're choosing, and it's part of your path, and it will catalyze more situations, but it will also catalyze the space in the path where we are asked to walk alone on this path. That's a very meaningful space. And those who have been there know exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone who is here now to see has to walk alone for some time, however long that is, because the healing takes place inside of a cocoon. And that's purposed. It's because we all have to learn to trust ourselves, to validate ourselves, to believe ourselves. And so you won't be able to look outside anymore for anyone to validate you, for anyone to tell you you're okay, you're beautiful, you're not crazy. It's going to be really hard inside of your 50-foot radius to find that in these situations. It's textbook stuff, because usually the person who is engaging in the narcissistic techniques with you, they are the people that will also tell the story, like their version of the story, to all of the people in their lives. And a lot of times they have a lot of people in their lives because they need that reflection that they're okay coming back at them. So they have a big support system, and that's okay. You will feel silenced and shut down, and it's purposed. It's because you are being asked to go the other route from what those of us who do fall into the narcissistic communication styles go. We are asked to learn to trust ourselves. And this means healing our own shadow stuff. This means really looking at who we are and roles that we have played. Looking at the illusions that we thought were life, the illusions that made up our lives. Everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. And you shed your skin. You shed your skin. And you wake up and you start to see the belief systems, the constructs, the matrix. You start to see the matrix. You start to see the code running. You start to see how that defines culture, how that defines family from family dynamics to different dynamics pertaining to different socioeconomic statuses, race, you name it. It goes on, and then you wake up to the bigger picture and what's all up top and what's even above that. So, and that's a personal path. That's a very, very personal path. And yeah, okay, so back to this. So there's a scene of the other person's wounds that result in their behavior, but the latter does not indicate self-sacrifice. Connection exists no matter what, regardless if we are in communication, because we're all connected. We're all connected. The connection continues, and we can send love at the same time, far away from it in human form. We can view it all from a bird's eye view and still know when it's time to stop putting energy into the physicality of it all. Maybe I'll catch you next time through. Maybe our dance here is done. Maybe this was the point, so I could practice self-connection and self-care. Thank you, you crazy soul rolling around in that skin suit, because that's all any of us are, right? That's what we're all doing here. Thank you for the opportunity to empower myself. Thank you for the opportunity to see how much I've grown, because when we will not accept abusive behaviors, we are growing. When we have the ability to even see them, like see them for what they are, we're waking up. We're waking up to the pathology in the world, the upside downness of the world, the normalized insanity of the world. There is a lot of stuff that is normalized, and socially sanctioned and accepted and even encouraged. And it is insane. It's literally insane. And so gratitude for the lessons and for the opportunity to honor self. They will keep coming back, that same kind of shit, until we get it down. Hold your own perspective and put down the ones that belong to others. Yours is your guiding light. You are being asked to honor your perspective, to love your perspective, to respect your perspective, to stop judging your perspective. If you do judge your perspective, you're being asked to look at why, where that comes from. Do the shadow work there. Do the inner child work there. All of that stuff, so that you can learn to honor your perspective from an embodied space. So, and then the meme was, self-care is not just bubble baths and going for massages. It is walking away from people who deeply suck, setting boundaries, and sometimes telling someone to fuck right off. So it is walking away from people who deeply suck. So that part of the meme I don't love, because they're behaving in ways that deeply suck, but they don't deeply suck. They came into this world cohesive, unified, beautiful. And then shit happened to them. And now they're in fear. And so they employ controlling techniques to try to keep people close to them, to try to create stuff around them that keeps them comfortable. And so having compassion for that, well, at the same time, when we can only have compassion for that once we get to a space in our healing where we have compassion for it in ourselves. Okay, for any tendency to do that in ourselves. And we have to have self-awareness is a huge part of that, right? Coming into a space where we have awareness of that in ourselves, and then letting it come up and loving it and honoring it and understanding where it comes from, right? But at the same time as we're doing that for others, understanding where it comes from in others, because we understand it in ourselves, not at the same time, that doesn't mean that we don't honor our experience in that space, our pain in that space, and engaging in the healing in that space, understanding that it's not okay. It's your perspective that leads you. And when we begin, this is the crux, you guys. This is the crux. When we begin to access truly what our perspective is, how we really feel about stuff, then we start to lead from our choices, outside of the belief systems, outside of the divisive narratives. We start to lead from truly what feels good to us, in a loving way too. Because the more we lead from love, the more empowered we are to align with our moral compass. It might not look like love to some people, because if you are making a choice that is different from the virtue signaling mainstream narratives that are steeped in logical fallacy, truth distortion, upside downness, if you are going against those with your choices, then people who align with that space will see you as unloving. So you have to know yourself. You have to believe yourself. You have to come into a space where you believe what you see and you understand the bigger picture, and you lead with love because you so deeply honor your humanity, the humanity of your loved ones, the humanity of everyone, that you will not accept anything less than truth. And so that is how we come out of fear spaces and we move into our warrior spaces, our love warrior spaces. There's so much more that I could say on that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Gotta love those little phrases. We are being asked who we want to be. We are all being. We're all being. Everything you do is full of being at the bottom of it. But who do you want to be? And so who are you? And we're all so identified with the programming, the brainwashing, the narratives that we've lost sight of really like who we are and what we think. It's very challenging, everything that's coming in, to have our own thoughts right now, you know, especially if we identify with something politically. And that's been something that I've been speaking on for years. They have been rolling out so many divide and conquer agendas through political identifications. But your political identifications are not who you are. They're not who you are. Politics is a construct and it is a stage. And the controllers don't give a shit about you. And I'm just gonna say it. They don't. They don't. They have their own agendas, and that's something that you can choose to research or not. But the belief that they're benevolent and they have our best interests at heart or in mind is foolery. It's just foolery. They don't care. If they did care, our environment, our food, the way the world is set up, this rat race, wouldn't be as it is. Okay, they don't care, and there are spaces that they would love to take this place, take this world. However, that thinking as well is another pillar. And if we invest a lot of energy and thought into those spaces, we will manifest it for them. We will align with it and we will manifest it for them. And so that's why it's so important for you, for us, for me, for all of us, to know who we are and to see the world as it could be and align in those spaces and start doing the stuff it takes to start creating that space. And there are a lot of, there's so much spiritual purpose in all of this. Everything you see that looks dark has a light side. Everything you see. The light is actually shining through the dark, right? It's the darkness itself that enables us to see the light, right? So it's all purposed. What else do I want to say here? How far do I want to take this down these different avenues? Okay, I think I'm gonna back up a little bit and I'm gonna go back to healing. Okay, so healing the parasympathetic, or rather activating the parasympathetic nervous system. One of the things that happens when we engage, when we have been in narcissistic situations, okay, it could be our whole lives, it could be a period of a year, whatever, is we become very reactive and we engage in fight, flight, freeze, fawn nervous system responses. And so activating the parasympathetic nervous system is very meaningful so that we can sort of move away from having those emotional flashbacks where, like, something's said to us and it triggers a wound that is derived from past abuse, and then we'll spin out and we'll be spinning for days over something, into a space where we can have a calm response. And this is so important for us, because when we're spinning in those emotionally reactive spaces, and we're doing that a lot, we're making our bodies sick. And we're certainly not doing very well, are we? There's anxiety, there's depression, suicide ideation. There's so many different slices to this. So one thing that we can do to activate our parasympathetic nervous system is actually start to do the things voluntarily that we are afraid of. So there's been a lot of research done on people who are exposed to a fearful situation unknowingly, involuntarily, and what happens in the brain, what synapses fire in the brain versus someone who voluntarily chooses to go into a space that they deem unsafe. Very different outcomes, very different things happen in the brain. And when we choose to go into those spaces, we are activating, the inner warrior. It's sort of like the same chemicals that are released when a football player is running down the field with the football to make a goal. Versus if you're sitting on the couch and, having a nice cup of tea and someone comes in and starts screaming at you and, throws a ball at your head. Another example is like, I used this one with my son recently. He doesn't like stink bugs. And they're prevalent around here. And so it's like, if, you walk in a room and the door closes behind you and locks and it's full of stink bugs flying around, versus if there's a room full of stink bugs and you're going to open that door and you're going to go in and you are going to conquer them. Very different things are happening in the brain. And so you're training your brain to accept scary situations from a warrior perspective. I was made for this shit. That's a mantra that I've used for myself and I've passed on to my clients. I was made for this shit. I can do this. I was made for this. I am powerful. I am strong. I am a freaking beast. I am a warrior, right? You are. You absolutely are. That's why you've been schooled in the spaces you've been schooled in. So accessing that piece is really helpful, because then instead of going into, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, we're voluntarily accepting challenges. And we can use that in so many ways in life, whether we're choosing to do something that, goes against the herd, goes against the mainstream narrative, or if it just comes down to like, say, you get really anxious, making a video, speaking on camera, do it. Then do that thing. Go and do that thing. That totally used to be me. The fact that I'm even here right now doing this is amazing. The fact that I make videos on Roaring Truth with Love with my dear sister Kirsty is amazing. The fact that I work with clients is amazing. The fact that just everything that I do, everything that I have agreed to, it's about you agreeing to be a badass, beautiful warrior, which you already are. You already are those things. It's just choosing to do it, agreeing to be who you are, even though it's scary. And so when we do the thing, it doesn't mean it's not going to be really scary still the first time. You might have a panic attack, and all of these things are symptoms that you've been, that your self-concept has been wounded, that you've been, that you have held a self-concept of shame within you. Anxiety is a huge indicator of that. So it's not saying that you won't do the thing and be totally afraid the first time you do it, but you chose to do it voluntarily. And so then you're going to do it again, and then you're going to do it again, and then you're going to do it again. And each time you're going to find out that you didn't die. You survived and you did the thing. You'll also be aware. Maybe you'll watch the video after. Oh man, the self-judgment will come up. Oh man, I'm ugly. I'm stupid. What am I talking about? Oh, this is awful. All that shit. Whoa, where's that coming from? What is there to heal in that? And it is your responsibility to heal yourself. It is your responsibility. Others can support you. I am honored to support you. I am honored to support anyone who feels called to seek support with me. But there are so many others out there as well who are called to do that work. So absolutely seek support. Who was it that said we heal when we feel heard? That is absolutely true. You must tell your story. There was so much spiritual bypassing going down about 5 years ago with the whole You get out of your story. That's your story. No, don't get out of your story until you are ready to organically, organically move out of your story with ease. Don't judge yourself for being in your story. Your story is your story. You must tell your story. The first thing, though, to understand is that it is your story, and that underneath it is who you are, and how beautiful you are, and how powerful you are, and all you're here to do in this world. And we need you, and we are grateful for you. And I am so grateful that you are here now. So grateful. Makes me want to cry. If you're watching this video, you are here now for a reason. Okay? So grateful. So the first thing is understanding that underneath all that skin, all those mucky layers of accumulated story that happens just being human in the world, is your cohesive, unified self that came into this world beautiful and ready to go. But everything that happened to you was also happening for you, because we had to see the dark. We had to shine light on the dark so that we would see, so that we would even have the ability to create a beautiful version. Otherwise, what would we even know? If we lived in like some utopia and everything's like perfect, and we're all communicating from a higher consciousness, from a evolutionary space, deeply loving, unconditional love, all of that, then well, that would be a whole other world, wouldn't it? And guess what? We're going there, but that's not where we're at. The world is upside down. And I'm sorry for what you've experienced. I'm sorry. I know it's very challenging, but you were given it because you can handle it, and we need you. And so we must take self-responsibility. We must stop blaming other people, except for to the extent that we do acknowledge where we have been abused. Okay, so we can acknowledge that for ourselves and see the roles that everyone was playing. But now it's time to take self-responsibility. We have to take self-responsibility. We have to consider looking at our own roles, looking at our own patterns of behavior that are harmful to ourselves and those around us, our addictions, low vibe stuff that we participate in because it feeds us. It's going to be different for men and women too, this kind of stuff. Men are being asked to come into their divine masculine, protector, safe space role. And women are being asked to come into their wise woman, their spiritual leader role. And for both of us, love is what leads us as well. And I'm not trying to say that we don't have that, it's in all of us. We all have the masculine and feminine in us, but I'm just talking about in terms of how we identify in this lifetime. And, I can say for myself, I very much identify as female. But if you bring my children into it, my masculine and feminine are fused. They're very fused. There's no disconnect there, because I am a mama bear and I will protect them at all costs. And I am a warrior in that space, and I am roaring in that space just as much as I see myself sitting in my wise woman, leading with my heart, leading with my knowing, my spiritual knowing, space. So it's gonna overlap. Okay. But there's a wounded feminine and a masculine and a wounded masculine archetype, two different archetypes that have been ramping up and playing out in this world. And so if you do identify as feminine or identify as masculine, those are real. We're really going to be asked to look at that and how we're participating in those archetypes and heal that stuff. But we're also being asked to step into the opposite, the other as well, the masculine for the feminine and the feminine for the masculine. I can say for myself, I went through a period of probably a year, about 3 years ago, where I was really integrating my masculine. And there's still times where that comes in, where I will see myself playing a protector role for myself even. And I understand that that's my masculine stepping in to protect my feminine, because in that space, my feminine is vulnerable. And so that's all stuff that we can do for ourselves and do for others. We can do it for our sisters. We can do it for our brothers. Okay, so hopefully this is all making sense and connecting for everyone. That post, I still love that post. Everything that I wrote was true in that post, but I'm just so being, I'm making this video because I was so called to speak beyond it as well, because this is not a time to stay in those low, like victim archetype spaces. This is a time to rise. This is a time to heal and to take self-responsibility for that healing. The world is just as malevolent as it is beautiful. Both things coexist. And the fact that we are able to meet that malevolence and walk through it in ways that, in many ways, we're even unconscious of the ways that we do it. Different constructs, different social constructs and systems that have rolled out that we just kind of accept as normal are really traumatic and detrimental to us as a species. And it's not working. And it's slavery. It's just feeding the elite. And everyone that's here just wants to be happy. And so for a lot of people, that's okay, because, maybe you just want to be happy and you're happy in that space of, the 9-to-5 job and the bringing the kids to daycare and all of that kind of stuff. And that's okay. That is your choice. And that's something else. That's actually, I did want to speak on that a little more. That is your choice, and no one should judge you for that choice. And I hope deeply that nothing I ever say makes you feel judged. Okay. Because I'm not judging anyone. We all have different soul paths. We're all in different spaces in our incarnations and in our path. And I was you in another lifetime. And maybe in that lifetime, you were like, oh my God, Michelle, will you wake up? So, we all have choices, but we all can access a space where we honor the choices of others, even when they are rigidly opposed to our own choice or our own understanding or our own seeing or our own knowing. And as we move into a space of self-responsibility for our own healing and our own path and what we are bringing into the world and what we are creating in this world, we also move into the space of accepting the choices of others. It's you can't have both, guys. You can't move into that space but spend all your time hating on and judging and being angry at the others, because it's just not the way it works. And I know it's frustrating, and I've been there too. I go into that space. It's frustrating when you see. I get it. But we can recenter, can love ourselves for being human and having those emotions, and then focus on ourselves again. What are we trying to create? What are we trying to build here? We're shown everything that we are so that we can make a choice. That's going to be the crux of this. And Kirsty and I, in our next Roaring Truth and Love video, we're going to talk a lot more on choices. What choice means. It's a divine choice. Everything that's happening is happening for you to show you that you have a choice. You have a choice how you respond to every situation. You have a choice how you respond to what's happening in the world. You have a choice. It's all deeply personal. And connecting to yourself through the work, through the self-work, enables you to connect to your choices. And when you make your choices, you will find that it becomes very easy. You easily know what your moral compass is, and it all comes from a space of integrity and love. Your choice, whatever you choose, comes from a space of integrity and love. And it's going to be, like I say, it's going to be unique, it's going to be personal, and it is likely not going to align with the mainstream official narratives, because those are all part of a script. It's all a stage, guys. It's all a stage. It's all a script. It's all set. It's all attempting to create divisiveness at the same time as it's attempting to show you that you have a choice. So you get to choose, you know, you get to choose, and you might go back and forth, and that's okay. You know, it's all part of the path. But ultimately, if you have been schooled in these spaces of narcissistic abuse, experienced narcissistic traits to, you know, to the point where you have a lot of healing to do, you accessing the knowing that you can use it. You can use it. You can use the schooling to step into who you are and into your choices. And that it's all very spiritually purposed and human purposed, is going to be a benefit to yourself, everyone around you, the whole world. So, okay, I guess I've talked enough. I'm going to leave that here. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. However, I am not able to answer questions in a way that, like, I can answer like a simple question, but if it's like your whole story, if it's your whole story, you need to schedule a session with me or someone else. And I'm happy to support you. You can message me on Facebook. You can go to my website, Fuller Consciousness, FULLERCONSCIOUSNESS.com, to connect with me. And I'm really, really happy to support you on your path. I want you to know that everyone that I support, I know that like I've come across like pretty aggressive and strong in this video. When I work with clients one-on-one, I'm not so much called to do that. One-on-one, it's a very loving, safe space. I recognize everything you share is a reflection, and I can't say how much I've grown as well from being given the honor of working with so many in that space. Ultimately, you're responsible for your own healing, but I am here to help guide and support you, help you consider new perspectives, offer techniques, healing techniques that come from spiritual schools of thought, counseling schools of thought, psychological schools of thought, a whole bunch of different mainstream theories, counseling theories overlapping, and definitely tailor things to you and what benefits you, because we are all different. And again, it's a deeply personal path. So I'm sending love. I'm grateful that you're here and that you watched this. If you finish this whole thing, thank you. And thank you for supporting me on my path by hearing me and by witnessing me and by receiving what I'm sharing. All right. Much love, everyone. Have a beautiful day. Remember who you are, and remember you were made for this shit.